Hey everyone, and welcome to Hollywood Hills episode 20. I've been dying to get that little benchmark going and really get us into the big numbers. So we're going to be flying along now as we now break our way into just the end of May, going forward into the racing month of June. June and July are always a little bit quiet, but there are a few things to talk about. But we'll get to that next week when we really start to fly into the calendar and talk about the breakdowns of the GXCCs and the farm jams. And there's quite a few things happening and coming around the bend. For this week, as we said with last week's show, we're getting ourselves ready to go into the support class. And with such a big gap between GXCC round 3 and round 4, we thought we'd space it out a little bit. So this week, we're going to introduce you guys to the support class. That's our Pro-Ams 1, 2, and 3, and our WOW class races. This is just for you. As promised, this week's show is going to focus in on our support classes, going through the Pro-Am and WOW gates, the numbers that make up the meat and potatoes of GXCC racing. This was round number 3 from Heidelberg, the fast one, and the fastest race of last season and this season combined, where all the pros and Pro-Ams would go out and see how fast they could truly go. On the flag drop, as always, in the Big Banger Pro-Ams on the OR1s, George De La Rosa saw clear air at Moto Cartel and Barnard Fufua, so he would be running the numbers out front. Remember, he was the championship points leader coming into this round, so he had it all to play for. OR2s, Brad Burrell got a good drop out the gate. Leon Koos was there, now starting to gel nicely with his 350 KTM after a couple of seasons on the blue machines of Yamaha. But he was going to have to really work hard against Burrell, who looked like he had the bit between his teeth on this fast terrain. Coming out the gate on the OR3s, it's Mudman Miguel Magado, who once again saw good numbers coming out. He had a couple of good buddies on his wheel, but it was clear air and stretching of the cable. Tons of work going in between the events for Magado. The practice and training is showing. And then on the WOW class, the Yami WR of PW Van Billion saw clear air, but could he hold it up against an unknown field of WOW day license races? There was a lot of variables coming out of the final gate of the day. The terrain out on the track for the Heidelberg event was relatively easy, fast in sections, but when it wasn't fast, it was flat land, and it was all about carrying good, smooth momentum and power through the dry and wet areas. There were only 2 wet areas that didn't cause too many problems. Cracking inside the top 5 for the WOW class this time around, Tyron Flanagan, who has been in and out of the championship for the last couple of seasons. Then Hank van der Merwe was up there, our hole shotter. PW Van Billion couldn't hang on to his clear air, but still held on to a top 3 advantage come the end of the day. Second, up the road from him, was Philip Hobbs. Philip seemed to gel a little bit better with the terrain out there on the WOW class and the tough conditions. Remember, it was a 3-hour plus race for these guys. And then a standout performance from one of the oldest bikes out there, an old CR Blue Smoker, Teek Harrower, coming out of absolutely nowhere in his first ever GXCC to see the checkers for the first ever time. A new star in the making, mark my words. Here's confirmation of Harrower on top ahead of Hobbs, Billion, and then Hank van der Merwe ahead of Flanagan, squeaking the top 5s coming out of the WOW gate. Into the OR3s. Now this is predominantly made up of 250 4-stroke machines, or in old money, some 200 smokers. There's very few of them left out there though. Most of the guys are banging the thumpers. Tion Fenter was up there on the C96, and then up the road from him was Francois Smallburger. He has done a great job transitioning from one of the top superstars in quad racing to now getting his hands on 2 wheels and starting to run some good numbers. I expect to see him make the move up into the pro classes into 2022. Janus Janssen is always on the box, and he does bring home a very solid performance in every single round of the championship. He takes a number 3 spot once again. Stefan Smith will be waving the flag as the top Yami, bringing the tuning forks up into a number 2 spot, and he'll be looking good for the championship challenge as well as he gets closer to the top of the pile. But there was no beating Mudman Miguel Magado. He is rocking and rolling his way all the way to the tippy top. He is now extending off the front in the championship, and that training and practice that he's been putting in between the races between himself and Devin Smith is paying off. Magado then confirms his position on top in this event and the championship ahead of Smith, Janssen, Smallburger and Fenter. Up then, as we start to stretch the cables, this is coming out of the OR2 Pro-Am gate, where Vernon Nordia, after getting picked up in the off-season by the Rubine Racing Squad, is bringing home the bacon in every single event. Number 5 spot for him. Nathan Godrich, a step up from last year's OR3s, now rocking the OR2s and getting better and better every single time. He's got championship aspirations. This was a good event for him. 4th place, no injuries, no problems on the bike. Got the job done. Dieter de Vet, who is one of the bigger riders out there, tall, muscular figure, and did have to muscle his bike around on this terrain. He stretched the legs and got the most out of his 350 to get a number 3 position and also start his championship challenge. Matty Sneyman came out the gate rocking and rolling on the C350, riding out of the Roost KTM squad. Sneyman is starting to come good. He rolled up the sleeves and got down to business. 2nd place will see him jump up in the championship order as well. Brad Burrell learned the biggest lessons in last season's events that he did compete in. Clear air and hole shot is how you set up a good day and a great day behind the bars. He takes his checkers and stamps his authority on the OR2 Pro-Ams. Burrell on top, ahead of Sneyman, De Vet, Godrich and Nordia. Elaine de Toy, honourable mention, his first top 6 of the season. On to the big bangers then. These were the guys that would be ripping the bars off, stretching the cables on the 450s, a couple of 300 smokers and 1 or 2 500s as well. Dal Campbell was up there, enjoyed the old school, relatively easy layout of the terrain. Where he could, he got the best out of his 300 smoker. Hardest Fencer was on the cable as well and always does well at these kind of flatland events. Like I said, nothing too testing. It was all about speed, performance, and just keeping your nose clean. Dennis van der Merwe was a player in the championship chase in last season's run throughout the 2024 shortened season. This time around, he's taken a little while to come back into his form, but now 3rd place will see him start to arrive and maybe challenge for a top 5 in the championship standings. Coming into this round, the Rooster was in the 2 spot and he had to do everything in his power. The little dude on the big bike was well looked after in the pits, put a good event together, and 2nd place will see him now jump up into the points lead for the championship. But this meant there was a new man on top and a first-time winner on the GXCCs as well. Welcome to the big table, Justin Manuel. Caught many people out as well, not really in the championship at this stage of the game, but we are only coming up to the halfway marker of the 2021 season, and Justin Manuel beat out a very tasty field to see his first checkers of the GXCC Tour in 2021. Confirmation then of Justin Manuel on the C177 on the top step. Vieira though, the Rooster, still holds station. 2nd place, he'll be happy with that as he now tops the charts in the championship heading to round number 4. Van der Merwe is coming good, as is Fenter and Campbell. Join us on the next GXCCs at Ventersdorp. So that's our support class, and that draws a line under GXCC Racing round number 3 as we get ready for round number 4 at Ventersdorp. Hopefully next week we're going to get some feedback from Vian. He's been out on the farm for a couple of weeks already, and he should be sending us some tidbits and videos and pictures to give you guys an idea of how things are going to be. What I can tell you is it's the early part of June, so it's going to be a little bit fresh. I remember Ventersdorp being absolutely freezing cold, frost on the ground in the morning, so my thoughts and prayers are going to be with the quaddies and the juniors that go out in the morning session. That's going to be a proper fresh one. Remember to break out those the little tricks. I know Wayne Farmer always talks about bin bags in the boots to make sure your feet don't freeze, and surgical gloves underneath your racing gloves in the morning session so your hands don't get cold. That's a little tip, and you can thank Wayne Farmer for that one. You'll have been aware that we have been going through the Goon Wagon project, and it's really cool, and it's picked up even more momentum, but I can tell you right now, we are about to start the rebuild process. And just before we actually start spinning the spanners and get the rebuild going, one little nugget of absolute gold has arrived in my lap. Once again, it's been huge support that we have been really helpful. The industry has been amazing, helping us get our hands on the bits that we need and the parts that we need and the assistance we need. And then I got a phone call out of nowhere. Jose from 444 Motorsport phoned and said, how can he assist? Went online, checked out what he's got, and we're going to be getting a Scalvini pipe. Now, these Scalvini pipes are handmade in Italy. They are that good The Travis Pastrana uses them on his blue smokers. Historically, they always used to be on his Suzukis. Now they're on his KTMs. So we are getting one of these. They've got an old model molding that does fit an 05, and I'm told by the guys at Shimwell's that it's going to work on our 01 model YZ. So that's a new sponsor that's come on board, and it looks like one of our final sponsors as well. So we're going to start putting the Goon Wagon back together next week. We've got the suspension back already. We've got the tires, we've got the levers, we've got the brake pedal. That all came courtesy of Bikers Warehouse, and we are about to pull the pin on the rebuild. So watch this space. It's going to be absolutely epic. Next week's show, we're also going to get up close and personal with a couple of riders on the motocross side coming out of the Bikers Warehouse. I won't give too much away, but it's one of our good friends from GXCC Racing and a good pal of mine as well. So watch out for next week's show. But for now, we are rolling along quite nicely, and I really hope the support class enjoyed their little bit of fame. Remember, you've got to get a little bit quicker if you didn't make the top 5 on the support class. You got to rip it a little bit harder when we go to Ventersdorp. For now, guys, have a good one. And you can see it's winter. I am layered up. It is fresh out there. Stay frosty. We'll see you next week.